Hello and welcome. My name is Jesse McClanahan, and today we're going to be building this custom frame for this custom canvas painting. Let's get started. Alright, so if you haven't seen last week's video, you can go check it out. It was painting this painting here. I also have a couple other paintings that are on canvas. As you can see, stretched over a frame here, which means they're about 3/4 inch thick. And what I want to do today is build frames for these, because I just have these as raw canvases hanging on the wall, which is totally fine. You know, I like to paint the edges just in case that's how you want to hang it anyway. You know, it's totally fine. But I want to jazz this up, and I have two other larger canvases that I want to make some sort of frame for, to just make them look a little bit nicer and just a little bit better than just a canvas on a wall. Now, I did some research and I came across what they call a floating frame, which is basically just a simple square frame, and you space out the canvas inside of it with a little bit of a gap so it looked like it's floating within the frame itself, and you just attach it on the back side. So what I went ahead and did, I found and ordered these 1-inch square dowels, which is going to be perfect because we have a 3/4 inch canvas with this, and then we'll have to put a back end portion on the back here to be able to attach the canvas to the frame. And I went ahead and purchased this, which is about 1/4 inch, I believe. So that, with that all together, that'll put and then right there you can kind of see, with all that together, that'll put us pretty much flush with the top of our frame. So with that little bit of a gap to create the floating effect, and then I also want to go ahead and on that face edge that's on the inside, I'm going to take my router and just cut a quick little chamfer on there to create a little bit of an angle, which will reveal, you know, just the slightest bit of the side and make it look a little bit better than just being, you know, completely flush like this. It'll give this wood edge on the canvas side just a little detail, which I think will look really nice. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start with this one, and I probably won't film the others. I'll probably reveal the others at the end, because it's basically the same process. We're just gonna do slight different measurements. This is a 3 foot by 12 foot. The other ones are 24 by 18 or something like that. So we're gonna throw this on a time lapse, get our measurements, get these pieces cut to length, and we're actually gonna cut 45s on the end. So when we butt them together, it's gonna look real nice, and that'll also be easy for doing the chamfer bit with the router. So let's get into it. Okay, so we went ahead and got our little chamfer in there. I did have a little issue with a couple of them where the router jumped at the end there and got that corner a little bit. It did only happen to like 2 or 3, and I think I'll be able to touch them up in the end. You won't really be able to tell anyway, but if I were to do it again, I would probably router that edge, that chamfer, along the length of the whole wood piece, and then cut my corners so it's all nice and smooth and looks a lot nicer. But luckily I caught myself. I stopped a little bit short, and then I just went in and just sanded the little nub down and made them. The rest came out really nice. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna start putting these things together. I went ahead and bought this little 90-degree clamp and jig here. Normally I would just kind of finagle something together, but I went out and got this morning actually, just so I could do this, make it a little bit easier on myself. And we're gonna get these all clamped together. I'm gonna screw them in from the tops and the bottoms, since you won't really see that area when you're looking at it. You're gonna mostly like walk around the sides, right? And we're gonna glue it together that way, and then once it cures, we're gonna take those screws back out, drill a little hole to sink those screws all the way in, and then we'll go in with a little dowel and plug all those holes and sand these flush before we do our final finishing work. So let's start getting these things put together. All right, so we're getting a little close here. I don't normally have my drill at home, and I completely wasn't thinking about doing this project this weekend, so I won't be able to sink those screws in till sometime this week when I bring my drill home and just quickly drill those out. But I think I'm just gonna continue on with the process, and what I'm gonna do is how I finish most of my wood projects, as long as it works out that way, is I like to do a nice dark finish. So what I do is burn it really well with I forget the gas maybe, the little torches. You'll see me doing it here in a couple minutes. I burn it down really good, and then I scuff the char, just the loose char on top, off with like a Scotch-Brite, and then I'll hit it with the and then after I do that, I'll hit it with a stain to really darken it up and even any weird little splotches out. And then we'll just have to come in and, you know, after we do those or plug those, we'll just have to touch those up separately, and I don't think that'll be too much of a problem. You know, I can just get my little mini torch and just hit those really quick and put a little bit of stain on there. Or I could even, you know, do like a nice offset, have everything dark except for the plugs, and have them be, you know, a light wood, which would be kind of cool. Or maybe I'll do that for one or two of these. And then also something I wanted to point out before I did go out and start burning these up is I was doing everything off of this canvas, which is about 3/4 inch thick. And when I made the other ones, they're a slightly different shape. Also, I don't know, they might be a different brand, but they are about 1/2 inch. So where this canvas will sit about flush with the frame, those other ones are gonna sit down just the slightest little bit, like a 1/2 inch or like a 1/4 inch, maybe even a little less. But that's just something to consider. I didn't really, you know, I kind of assumed all canvases were the same thickness and whatnot, but just something to put out there. But let's go get these burned and then start doing some finish work. finally remembered to bring my drill home. So what we're gonna do now is drill out these screws one by one. Well, not drill out the screws, we're gonna take the screws out, drill out the holes to countersink them, screw them back in, and then we're gonna cut off little chunks of this dowel rod and plug all those holes, and we'll come back tomorrow after it dries and sand those flat, and then most likely take a smaller torch and just touch up those little areas to match the rest of the frame. Okay, now we got our frame all nice and finished up. Can't even really see the plugs I made. They hid really well. I also did a little bit of touch up in some of the corners on the other ones. They weren't too bad, but you can kind of see them. I'll just have to watch how I do my Dremel work from now on. But what we're gonna do now is we're gonna place our frame on our canvas upside down here like this. Get some of this out of the way. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna take these popsicle sticks and just space this painting out so it's as center as it can be inside this frame. We're gonna throw a single nail into each corner. That'll be enough to hold it together, and then we'll get those final shots. Alright, so there you have it. Pretty happy with how these came out. This one specifically because I saved these wood pieces when I was dremeling, routing the edge. I saved these for last, so these are like the nicest ones that come out. My two other ones, you can actually see those videos of me painting them. My giant rat and owl painting I've done. There was a couple little things I had to touch up, but again, not too big of a deal. They went pretty much away. There's still a little mess I could clean up, but I'm not too worried about it. The little dowels on the end are pretty much completely hidden. You can't really see them. I did also add this little bit of tape, just black gaffer's tape. I folded over the edge so it's black on both sides and just kind of covered that gap, since this is a floating frame and the canvas is kind of floating in there. You can kind of see there's slight little gap on the edge, and you can see that better in the other ones you probably saw in the little video. You probably saw that in the shots previous. But yeah, I don't think I could ask for much more. You know, I did my finish that I always do, burn it, rough it down, and then put like a nice little stain finish on it. I put a little bit of a wax finish on it too, just to make it just nice and sealed, and it's not gonna, none of that char is gonna rub off on your fingers if you're moving these things around or on the wall or anything. So if you like what you saw, hit the thumbs up. It really helps. If you want to see more, hit the subscribe. I'm always over here doing some sort of creative project, whether it be painting, you know, building some sort of frame or home decor type deal. Who knows? Leave in the comments below what I should do next. See you on the next one.